All right. Welcome to the Quixotic Heights podcast where dreams take flight. This show is all about diving into the stories and insights that inspire us and make a difference in the fields and the communities that my guests are in. I'm your host, Amy Emily, and we're exploring the intersection today of healing, heritage, and hustle. Joining me is the remarkable Dr. Julie Tran. She's a licensed naturopathic doctor and acupuncturist, founder of the Silicon Valley Natural Health and author of Acupuncture Awakenings, as well as co-author of Asian Women Trailblazers Who Boss Up. And Miss Julie Tran here is not only a wellness expert, but she's also a voice of empowerment for the Asian American women and in business and in medicine. So today, in today's episode, we're going to talk about her journey from healer to entrepreneur and the wisdom behind Eastern medicine and how she's helping others boss up. And I also want to know what our organs are worth on the black market today as of
Oh,
June 2025. Stay tuned. So, anyways, welcome, Dr. Julie Tran. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on your podcast. I feel very excited to be here.
Good, because I'm excited to have you on the show and to talk to you a little bit further about your journey. So tell us a little bit about your Quixotic Heights dream.
So my dream is to ultimately the big audacious quixotic height dream is to ultimately have this big huge healing retreat center, right, where we have different modalities come in. People take time out of their day or their week or their month, right, to actually come heal, see what's possible, be empowered, and bring those skills and knowledge that they learn back to their families, their community, and everyone gets to stay healthy and be healthy and thrive.
I love it. Sign me up.
Okay, sure.
What inspired you? What inspired you to pursue a career in acupuncture and natural medicine? And by the way, this is a very interesting topic for me because that's what my mom went into, as a young immigrant from Vietnam, and you're from Vietnam as well, right?
Right.
Uh, that was something that she wanted to do was go into acupuncture. So tell me a little bit about that.
So my journey began. My parents actually immigrated from Vietnam, and I was born a week after my parents came to the country, right? So growing up, and this was like in the 80s and things. Oh, am I aging myself? I might be. But anyways, Uh, so growing up, we did a lot of home remedies, right? Asian medicine type things. I always was fascinated by it. But for some reason, I don't know if people know they have this calling or they have this idea. And my idea has always been, I want to do something to help people. Right. And you can help people in different ways. You can be an educator. You can be, an independent publisher, right? To help people amplify their voice and things. And I figured that what is so personal to everyone is their health. So I decided to pursue something in health. I wasn't sure at the time. I majored in psychology because I was interested in why do we act the way we act? What motivates us to do the things that we do? And then from there, I actually worked at a psychiatric hospital and I realized, yeah, that's not what I want to really do. Right? It was a different type of healing that was happening there. And I was like, there's got to be something better. And so was researching and found naturopathic medicine. I decided to go to naturopathic school. And then there was always that missing component of what about the emotions, right? What about the how we feel, our mindset can affect our physical bodies. And so as a naturopathic student, we always get an intro course to traditional Chinese medicine, which is a whole medical system in itself, different ways of diagnosing imbalances, different ways of treating. And I was like, that's it, because Chinese medicine is based on the seasons, based in nature, but everything has an emotional component to it. So certain organ systems or associated with certain emotions, such as the spleen organ system is emotion associated with worry, the emotion of worry. The kidneys are associated with fear, right? So that's why a lot of times with me, when I work with my fertility patients, I tell them don't do anything that will scatter your kidney energy, because the kidney energy houses our vital essence, and the kidney is part of our reproductive, like it's one of the major organs for reproduction. So we don't want to do or watch any scary movies or anything that will shock the system and scatter the energy. We want to concentrate it. So it's things like that that I've learned through the years that has been great in helping my patients, helping my friends and family kind of like, well, let's look at it from this perspective. If we've done everything on the physical level and on the anatomic level, like we got the hormones all in place, we've got this, but you're still not feeling great, then let's talk about the emotions. But what I find is some people, we have our walls built up, and so we don't necessarily want to talk about it. We're not there yet. We're not ready. And with acupuncture, the points are so beautiful. Acupressure, right? I just needle some points and it just lets go. The patients feel better. We don't have to talk about it. And I'm not a licensed therapist, so I don't really counsel on that level. But at least at that point, we're addressing some of the emotional component without having to talk about it because the patient's not ready to talk about it yet.
Wow. So it's a wholeness treatment.
Right.
Yeah. So what's interesting to me is, well, it's a medical field, right? And so does that mean you work with cadavers? Like, what does the journey look like to actually get a degree in acupuncture? And is it an OMD or what is it called?
So almost all schools in the United States, the entry level is a master's, right? It's a master, depending on your school. I went to two different programs. So one was a master's in acupuncture. The other was a master in traditional Chinese medicine. So it just depends. You can go further and get your doctorate. Currently, it's a DAOM, which is Doctor of Acupuncture and Oriental Medicine. They are trying to change it because of the Oriental part of it. So they're changing it to probably Doctor of Asian medicine and herbs, something like that, right? But the DOM, some have OMD depending on the degree. But that journey, you don't necessarily have cadaver lab. It's a lot of anatomy, physiology. You do have the basic sciences as a requirement to get in for acupuncture. And then all of it is, and it's usually, if you're full-time, 4 years. It's a 4-year program. Most programs are 4 years. What you do then is you learn all the basics, right? The theory of Chinese medicine, yin and yang, right? The the seasons, all of that fun stuff, and then you get the practical of the clinic, where it's point location, needling technique, cupping, all the different modalities that acupuncturists may use. And then in California, where I am, a lot of Chinese herbal medicine is happening, right? So you have a lot more herbs to choose from. And that's what I use. I blend Chinese herbs with vitamins and minerals for my patients to give them the best results. And I remember because I did my program in Connecticut, because I did the dual degree as a naturopathic doctor and acupuncturist there. And then when I moved back to California, they said, "Oh, you can't get your license as an acupuncturist. You don't have enough herbal classes to take the KO, which is the California Acupuncture License exam, because California has its own exam." So I was like, "Oh, okay." So I had to go back to school, right, to then do more herbal medicine before I could even sit for the exam to get my license to practice as an acupuncturist in California.
Wow. So then do you prescribe medicine? Because I remember when my mom, when I was younger, my mom would go to these Chinese herbal medicine doctors, whatever, and they would get like, a teaspoon of like snake skin and a little bit of cloves and whatever. And she would like put it all together, boil it in a pot, tasted gross. But it's supposed to like, do magic for you. But is that what you do also, is prescribe these kinds of?
Yes. So I find though, so we all get trained in those bulk herbs and the herbal medicine part of it. And a lot of traditionally, acupuncturists will still have those dry herbs in their practice, and they make up a batch and they tell the patients, like what you said, is here, we need you to go boil this down, right? Drink it over however many days, come back, see how you're doing, and then we might change the formula here and there by taking out an herb, putting another herb in. But a lot of times in our modern busy world, right, we don't have time for that. Right? So a lot of times it's easier to do recommend or prescribe for patients the powder. So then they just dissolve in hot water and drink, right?
Oh,
Or even if they don't want to do that, then we have the options of tablets or pill form, right? And a lot of formulas come in the small, what we call T pills. So they're small little round pills that, you take about eight 3 times a day, depending on the formula, right? And then there are capsules. So they're different, right? And then of course, there's herbal topicals for any exterior skin stuff or pain and things like that. So it all just depends on what the person needs at the time. And I always try to set people up for success, right? Because we're all busy. We all have things to do. We have our to-do list. And it's one of those things where it's like, what is going to be the easiest for you to do to take this herbal formula to do this? Is it going to be a powder where you mix in water and drink? Is it going to be a capsule? So I go by also what's going to be easiest for the patient so that they don't feel like they disappointed me if they don't take it. Right, where they're like, oh, Dr. Julie's going to be mad at me because I didn't do XYZ or I forgot to take my medicine today. I was like, okay, what's going to be easiest that you're actually going to do so that way we get you to your health goal, and then we feel like, you don't feel like, oh, that was one more thing and you're stressed out about that you didn't do.
I love that because you're right. Healthcare is very personal. We all have our choices. Our bodies react differently. I hate taking pills. So if you give me something to drink, I would much rather do that, for example, than swallow a itty bitty tiny pill because even that
Mhm.
I will gag on it. So that's amazing. I love that. And then you ended up starting your own business, right? Did you
I
work
did,
at a
yes.
at a clinic for a while before you actually opened up your own personal practice?
Yes. So in my career, I was lucky enough to work for Dr. Peter Diadamo. He's the author of the blood type diet. So eat right
Mm,
for your blood type. And then the
okay.
second edition was live right for your type. And he has multiple books. So I was lucky enough to do that. And under him, learned a lot about the blood type diet and what you're talking about, the individual differences, right? And how certain, because we have individual differences, we have to be careful and be personalized in our treatment recommendations and our prescriptions of herbal medicines and other formulas to help our patients. And then when I moved back, because that was out in Connecticut, and then I moved back to California, I worked in different acupuncture clinics, right? And that's where I kind of got my interest and start in fertility. I was actually working in a clinic that mostly did fertility. That was 90% of the practice. So I learned a lot about that there. And then what spurred on me actually was that practice I got fired from. Um, and I didn't get a good reason why. So I was like, okay. I know one of the things was they thought I was giving secrets to another clinic who they thought was their competition. So this was when I first started out. I was working for them, and then I was actually subleasing a space to start my own private practice to see my own patients and things like that. But again, I was just an independent contractor for that clinic. So I was like, okay. And then they found out it was because that acupuncturist that I was subleasing from also does fertility. And they assumed that because she was also doing fertility and I was there, she was their competition, and that I might be divulging their secrets to her, even though I never saw her. Like, we were on opposite days. It was just, okay, my rent check is on your desk, right, for the month. And because we were on opposite days, so I never really saw her or did anything, but that was it. And I was like, all right, okay, well, now I guess I gotta do my own thing. So
Yeah, because sometimes our
Silicon
doors
Valley Natural
closes
Health
and
is a
somebody else opens.
revision of that, because I actually started out as Blue Skies Acupuncture, right? And then through the years rebranding and things, and because I'm in Silicon Valley, San Jose, the Bay Area, I decided to rebrand to Silicon Valley Natural Health.
Okay. That's a lot
Yeah.
of work. I mean, as all entrepreneurs know, you don't know until you like actually start doing the work because it requires so much business licenses and, insurance and finding the right people that you can trust and like the software and all this other stuff, and I don't know, it takes a while to actually become profitable too, I would
Right.
imagine. Um,
Mhm.
is acupuncture something that insurance typically covers nowadays, or is that still a little bit of out of pocket?
No, for most part, right now in California, acupuncture is considered an essential health benefit. So it is. Most major insurance companies do cover it. It just depends on varying levels, right? Depending on your plan. Some you get 20 visits a year, some you get 12 visits a year. Some it's combined with this is a whole insurance rabbit hole. Some is combined with other modalities. Like I've typically what I find is it's combined with chiropractic care. So let's say you get 20 visits a year. If you divide it evenly, then you get to see your chiropractor 10 times a year and you get to see your acupuncturist 10 times a year, right? But I always joke with my patients like, well, actually, it just depends on who files the claim first. Like, right?
Okay.
If you came to see me and I get my claims into your insurance company first and they pay me out, right, then that counts as part of the visit. And if I get those all in before your chiropractor gets them in, right? It's a joke, but it's not. Right. So
Yeah.
it depends. And then some are just independent of that. And of course, there are some acupuncturists who don't accept insurance, but they're what you call out of network providers. So if you have out of network coverage for your insurance, what you can do is get reimbursed for that visit.
Okay. So how long have you been in the business?
10 plus years. It's
10
been a
plus.
long time,
Yeah,
over
yeah.
a decade.
You're amazing because I follow you on Instagram and I love the little shorts that you do.
Oh, thank
Um,
you.
yeah, I mean, it's just amazing how much you know and how much you share with people. So, anyways, I encourage everybody who's listening or watching to definitely check out Silicon Valley Natural Health because Dr. Julie Tran does go on there and she gives like really solid sound advice. Let's pivot a little bit. I want to talk about your
Sure.
book. Let's start with Acupuncture Awakenings. Tell me more about that.
So that book is, I consider, a kind of a primer to Chinese medicine and acupuncture. So nowadays we interchange Chinese medicine and acupuncture, but acupuncture is actually one of the branches of Chinese medicine. So if you think of Chinese medicine as this big tree, right? There are 5 branches to it. Acupuncture is one of the main ones. Herbal medicine, dietetics, so looking at your nutrition, but more from an energetic level of our foods cooling, neutral, or hot, or warming more so. And depending on your constitution, we recommend certain foods to that. The Tuina or Chinese massage form is more of a medical massage. And then the exercise, what I said, or the movement, the Qigong, Tai Chi, those are the 5 branches of traditional Chinese medicine. Most are known as the acupuncture and herbal medicine part of that. Um,
Where does
so,
acupressure fall into it?
I'm sorry.
Where does acupressure fall into all of that?
It's part of the whole system because acupressure, we use a lot of acupressure or Tui knot in like for little kids, right? Because when you insert a needle, they're not going to sit still, right? Depending on their age, right? So a lot of times if you're going to do a needle, which most kids don't like, right? It's going to be a quick insertion and you take it out. So it's just stimulate the point. And some we just do acupressure and I do some acupressure for patients who are afraid of needles. Needles don't hurt. Acupuncture needles don't hurt, by the way, everyone out
They're
there.
shiny.
But right? But we can work slow and start with acupressure. So it's the same idea, only you're only kind of stimulating the point through massage, right? Versus inserting an acupuncture needle.
How young do you have to be or can you be to take advantage of acupressure and acupuncture?
You can be an infant all the way up to 100 or more,
Really?
right?
Okay.
Yeah. There are acupuncturist Chinese medicine practitioners who specialize in pediatric. So they're seeing mostly kids, and some actually specialize in pediatric Tui Na. So they're doing a lot of the acupressure and the massage for the kids because again, the needles.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I think it's fascinating with like the different cheese or the energy,
Mm,
where certain points, heal certain things. Can
right.
you just give like maybe one or two examples of like if you put a needle in one spot, it heals something else or affects some other energy?
Sure. So between, I don't know if you can see this. Okay, this way, because I get the camera right. Between your thumb and your index finger, that web right there, closer to the bone, is a acupuncture point called large intestine 4. right? And yeah, acupuncture points are numbered, but they also have their Chinese name, right? And so if you do that, it's considered the master point for a lot of energy. So if you do that, like if you're getting a headache, right, or you feel like you have some neck pain or shoulder pain, if you press down on that really hard, right, for a while, you'll actually notice the energy release so that let's say you feel the start of a migraine headache coming on or a headache coming on and you press down on here for a few minutes, what you'll notice is that it may stop your headache from actually becoming a full-blown headache, right? It might ease that because that point actually is in charge of opening up energy to the neck, face, and head, right? So that's a good one. I always like to do that one, right? Everyone, I'm pretty sure, I don't know, most people are familiar, with the motion bands, the motion sickness bands that you wear.
Yeah.
That point where you have it is actually pericardium 6. So it's a little bit beyond the wrist crease, right in between the tendon there. It's called pericardium 6. So if you press that, that's good for nausea,
Mm.
vomiting, right? And that's why motion sickness bands actually hit right there,
Uh,
right?
you're pregnant and then you're,
Yeah.
oh,
Mm-hmm. You can do
okay.
that. Right. By the way, for my pregnant ladies out there, there are certain acupuncture points that are a no-no when you're still pregnant, but your acupuncturist should already know that. So just a disclaimer out there.
Public
The
service
other
announcement.
Right. The other thing is a really easy one. If you're kind of feeling stressed out and you just need to calm down, right between the eyebrows there, that kind of like the third eye point, right? It's
Mhm.
an extra point called yin tong, and that point is good for stress relief, calming down the nerves, and actually sleep. Because right behind that, if you were to be able to x-ray through, is where our pineal gland sits, and the pineal gland is what secretes melatonin, and melatonin is the hormone that signals for our body it's time to wind down and it's time to go to sleep. It's time to rest. Right.
Mhm.
So doing those. So those are typical
I
kind
love
of
that.
things that don't really, yeah.
So those pressure points, is it related at all to tapping? You know how sometimes people do tapping on their head or, wherever to evoke
I think
certain.
there's some areas of tapping that correlate to certain regions for our acupuncture channels and
Right.
things, but the tapping has specific like areas that they do for certain things. And I think that's more of a nervous system thing. And I'm not an expert on tapping. So all my tapping experts out there, you can correct me when you come on Amy's podcast.
Yeah, actually, I know a woman named Edie Sangorio, who's working on a book that she's going to put out. And one of the self-care things is about tapping. But let's not talk about her. Let's talk about you. Let's talk about, oh, before we go on to Asian Women Trailblazers, who boss up.
Yes.
I do have a question about eating or cooking or whatever for your blood type. Um,
Hmm. Hmm.
one of my girlfriends, Joyce, she bought me this book about cooking, I think it was, or eating for your blood type. How
Hmm.
much truth is there in that?
There is a lot of science behind it, and what Dr. Pierre Diadamo did was actually his father started kind of researching this because he was wondering why, how come some diets work for certain people but not others, even though it sounds like, advice like eat more protein, eat less simple carbs, do more, right? And but then when you get into the blood type diet, the philosophy and the theory behind that is when we eat according more to our blood type, then our cells, our immune cells, right? Because we say a lot of our immune cells are in our gut, right? Have time to do other things like differentiate from virus, bad thing, go get rid of it. Or like, I just do that versus having to differentiate from our food. Hey, is this us or not us? Do we need to deal with it or we don't, right? So if you look at it, there's actually a lot of science that goes behind that. And then Dr. Didamo actually took it a step further. So his thing was also about your genotype. So that was another book that he did, right? But it's a lot of, if you do the research behind it, it looks at lectins and agglutination, which means like, does your blood get clumpy and stick, right? Because if that's what happens, then the food is not good for you, right? So according to the blood type diet, so I'm an A positive, right? My diet should be more of a modified Mediterranean diet, a lot of fish, a lot of poultry, not a lot of red meat. Whereas my husband is a type O, and O's need more red meat. right? And so if you look at it also, and then type A blood types, right? We tend to have, if you look at the research, there's a tendency to have more cortisol streaming in our bloodstream. So cortisol is our stress hormone. So it makes our blood more viscous and more thick, right? So so for us, we need to do exercises that bring us more inward. Tai Chi, yoga, the more kind of calming things, right? So that way our blood flows a little bit better. Whereas type O blood types need more like the vigorous exercise to like they get exhausted because that actually helps them recirculate their serotonin, which is one of the neurotransmitters that help us feel good. Right. So for those type, if you know any O's, right, or if you know someone says, "Oh yeah, I love exercise till the point of exhaustion, it makes me feel good," they're probably a type O, and you probably ask them, "Are you blood type O by any chance?" Right?
It's my husband is O negative, and he's exactly that. He eats a lot of meat, although he tries to be more lean. He's health conscious, so he's like trying to eat the chickens and whatever. And then,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, he works out sometimes twice a day, and it's that vigorous exercise. And he's always giving me, you should exercise more. And I'm like, no, my AB negative says I don't need to exercise, and I can eat all the BS I want, right? But yeah, I'm curious to know about that, and I actually look forward to reading that book. But let's talk about Asian Women Trailblazers Who Fought.
Okay. Yeah.
What is that book? How did you get onto that anthology? Tell us more.
So I think I don't know, it was a Facebook post or some social media post, right? And I ended up meeting Sheena Yap Chan, who actually helps coordinate a lot of the books and things. And she was saying, "Hey, we're doing this Asian Women Trailblazer. We think you'll be good for it." And I was like, "Ooh, that sounds fun." Right? It's like, and then part of me was like, "Am I a trailblazer?" I thought about it and I was like, I think I am. Okay, let's do this. Right. So it was,
Why do you
and
think
then of
you're
course
a trailblazer?
that's how I met you, of course, my lovely Amy. Right? And we've been friends ever since and supporting each other. And it's great because we've built a community with all the other women that are in our book. Right. And so I think it's fabulous and I love it. It's great.
But why did you think you were a trailblazer and that you were like, I deserve to be in this book?
Ah, I started my own business, right? Which at the time was like, oh, I don't know if I can afford, like you said, it costs a lot, rent, business permits, all that stuff. And I'm like, do I even know how to run a business, right? Because when you're in medical school and you're in acupuncture school, no one really tells you, hey, you're actually running a business, right? And right now, like integrative medicine is making strides and more people are accepting of it, but you don't really see naturopathic doctors at major hospitals, right? You don't see a whole lot of acupuncturists at major hospitals. There are acupuncturists at the VA hospital. There are some acupuncturists at Kaiser, but it had to be truly an integrative model. So a lot of times it's either you go work for someone or you have to basically open up your own practice. Right. So there's that. And so I was like, I can do that. And there are not a lot of Asian naturopathic doctors.
Yeah,
Right?
which is
Uh,
surprising.
most Asians go the traditional medical route, right? MD, DO, that type of stuff. So there was that, and I was just like, okay. So, and it was interesting because I remember when I had my first open house, my aunt had said, "Wow, that's amazing. Even your cousin didn't dare to open her own like practice." My cousin's an optometrist. She was in tech for a while, left, went back to school, and so I was like, "Wow, I'm amazed by my cousin." But but she actually works at a medical group, hospital, right? So that's why I thought it was interesting that I was like, oh yeah, I can do this.
That's very cool. So tell me, what do you think you want readers to get from reading both books? What do you hope for them?
So what I hope is to empower them, right, with the idea that one, they're worth it. Two, they actually have the power and the tools to ask the questions and be advocates for themselves and say, but wait, what about this? Or, hey, do I have these options, right? Especially with acupuncture awakenings, it's just about the different options, healing options that are out there, right? You don't just necessarily, because, a little secret, doctors are human, right? we do make mistakes. We don't know everything, but right, we try to give you the best of what we know from our clinical experience, from our training. But it's always good to ask questions, right? And don't worry, for me, if you say I Googled this and I researched it, I asked Dr. Google, I'm okay with that, right? And say, hey, I found this. And that's why I like learning, right? To do that. But yes, you are worth it. So you need to advocate for yourself, be empowered, make healthy choices. And like in my book, I said, surround yourself with people who have a bigger vision of you so that you can elevate to that vision, right? If that's what you want to do. We don't necessarily want to surround ourselves with lower vibrational people because that doesn't do anything for us, right? We just want to be elevated, right? Because sometimes when you're in it, like Amy says, in the hustle, there have been days where I was like, what could I be doing different?
Mhm.
In med school, I was like, oh, maybe I should do something else, right? I don't know if this is worth it. Maybe, in the hustle and the grind of opening a practice and doing this, like, maybe I should just go get a safe, like, 9 to 5 job. It's just, it's a regular paycheck, right? Whether someone comes in or not, I still get paid, right? Versus when you're in private practice, if a patient cancels or reschedules, right, you didn't make income that day. Right. And I'm sure as a independent publisher, if you're not signing new authors, right, and helping authors get their voice out there, there's that, right? So there's always that, I don't know if this is worth it doing it, right? But when we get the patients who come in and say, you helped me or you've done this, right? It just rejuvenates you and just goes great, right? I'm sure that happens when one of your author has their book launch, right? And it's their first launch and it's like finally after all the hard work, everything is in place and that is the crowning moment, right?
Yeah.
Everything. And
Yes.
so it always like, and I know acupuncture works. I know naturopathic medicine works, right? But when a patient comes and says, wow, I was so excited to do this and I was able to do this, I was like, yeah, that's the magic. I always get giddy like a little kid in a toy store. Like, yeah, isn't it so cool? Right.
Love
And then
it.
I geek out, but that's
That's because you're so passionate about it. And I love that because when your patients do well, it's worth getting excited over and celebrating.
right.
Yeah. You mentioned
Hmm.
something earlier about lower vibrance. Was it lower frequency?
Lower vibrations.
Yeah. What do you mean by that? I think I know, but I wanted to hear your definition.
Well, so there are the people that are going to be the naysayers. They're the doubters, right? They'll be like, what? No, you can't do that. Do you know how hard that's going to be? They're always the people that bring the obstacles to you, right? Or try to point it out to you.
Mhm.
Yes, some of them are well-meaning. They're trying to help you say, well, have you really thought about this, right? But so those are the people that are always negative. You don't want to be around them,
Yeah. Yeah. Because I
right?
feel like we're all energy, we all
Exactly.
a
Right.
frequency. And
Hmm.
I 100% believe in the whole life conscious thing. I mean, there is a higher self that we try to esteem to, but and sometimes I think that you're right when you are hanging out with somebody who just kind of drags you down energy wise, that it's time to move on. You gotta find your own light too. If it's not within, then be around people who can elevate you to that next level. But your two books have also won awards. I'm sure you in your practice have won awards. What are some of the things that you've won?
So, Asian Woman Trailblazer book, right? We're international bestseller on Amazon. The Acupuncture Awakenings book won the International Impact Book Award in the category of alternative medicine, mind, body, spirit medicine. Right? I myself have won the Excellence in Healthcare Award from Health Point 2.0 conference in Las Vegas there, right? So there's been a lot of different awards there, but what really matters, I think, is that everyone knows that you're worth it. You have a light. You may not know it. You may not you could just smile at someone down the street and that will make their day. Right. I was wearing a shirt that had like lipstick all over it and it just said shine, sparkle, smile. Right. And this lady came up to me. She's like, that so made my day. I was having such a hard day and I saw your shirt. Right.
Mhm.
So I was like, just be kind. Right.
Yes.
Be be you, right? Because there are going to be people that will benefit, everyone will benefit for you being you, and just doing you versus trying to be something or someone you're not.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and then you were you were in Vegas, I think, and you won something from Women with Vision International as part of the Boss Up. Oh,
Oh, yes, I
what
did.
award
See,
was
I
that?
even forgot about that, right? There was the
Let me build your
Trailblazer
resume for you.
Award, right?
So what
Yes, I
was
got
it?
a China doll trophy, and we have a picture of us with it too, right?
Yeah, we do. But what was it? I can't remember what the award was.
I think it was the Trailblazer one.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah,
Well, okay.
it's okay.
Ah, my memory, my memory.
Well,
Okay.
that was a couple of years ago, right? 2, 3 years ago. So,
Yeah, I don't know. It just all blends together. Okay, so my next question for you is, um, for those who are unfamiliar with acupuncture,
yeah.
what would you say are some of the benefits of Eastern medicine versus Western medicine?
Okay, so acupuncture overall, or Chinese medicine overall, right, is going to help improve sleep, help improve your overall health and well-being by actually just calming the nervous system down, by improving circulation to certain areas, right, for pain relief. So most people know acupuncture for the kind of the more physical medicine of the pain relief, neck pain, low back pain, shoulder pain, right? But there is also an internal component to it for chronic diseases like high blood pressure, diabetes, right? Through acupuncture and herbs and diet, we can actually help maintain that or make sure it's not worse or make sure it gets a little bit better, right? Can't say cure because that's illegal. But there are health benefits to that, right? And so some people just feel like overall well-being. So case in point, I had one patient. He was a 50-year-old male, and a lot of anxiety, right? A lot of anxiety. And now this patient is deathly afraid of needles, does not like needles. But he came to me because I got to get a handle on my anxiety. I don't know, I've had all these health, all these work episodes, right? And I can't work. And right, I just need to get a handle on it so I can live my life. Said, okay. So we started doing weekly treatments, and he's definitely afraid of needles. And so through the process, he's so much better, less anxiety. And then I tried to move him to once we got him stable, it was like, okay, so now we don't have to do weekly treatments. We can do every other week or monthly. And he actually just moved himself back to weekly because he noticed that he was just having other health benefits overall. Like, hey, ever since I started doing acupuncture, I don't get sick as often, right? I'm better able to handle the stress in my life. So there are just different benefits from going. And I tell patients that it's your time of self-care, right? So you come in, I do the treatment and you're here, but I also tell my patients, if you just need to escape life and you want a place to do that, just tell people you have a doctor's appointment. Come in, right? I'll let you take a nap,
I have a doctor's
right?
appointment.
Right? Go take a nap, right? Take a nap on my table. I won't even put needles in. Take a nap, right? And then leave, right? It's because it's so important to have self-care, right? And I always like to say that you have to be selfish before you can actually help other people in your lives, right? Before you can be the mom, the working woman, the CEO, the whatever it is that other roles that you play in your life, you have to put yourself first in terms of your own physical health and mental health before you can actually help those around you,
Mm,
because otherwise you run on empty. You're not going to have enough to give to anyone else, and then you're going to feel guilty about that, especially as a woman, right? As we, and men have multiple roles too, but let's just face it, ladies, society, we rule. We run things, right? Women run things, right? Things wouldn't happen without us. So in order for things to keep running, we have to make sure we're up and running and being the best version of ourselves so that we can set the examples and be best versions for everyone else out there too and give more, right? That's why I like what I do, is because I can help people live, right? Not necessarily live, but help people through their health challenges or whatever their health goal is. So that way they can go do amazing things in their lives, whatever it is that they want to do.
yeah. So when people have a health concern and they go to see
Mhm.
you, is there a finite amount of treatments that they go through, or is this something that's kind of an ongoing thing where once you're in acupuncture, if you stop, then they might come back?
Depends on what it is, right? So I always like to, my goal is to get you out of my office and I see you maybe once a year, twice a year, right? Once we get you stable, right? Now, if you want to come, like my patient wants to come weekly and make that part of your self care, that's great. But usually with acupuncture, I would say, we always say 6 to 8 treatments, maybe 8 to 10 treatments, right? To see and really reevaluate what's going on, how we're doing, how do we change our treatment strategy, what's new, what's happening, what's not changing, what is changing, and how do we do it. So I try to do different modalities, not just acupuncture, other treatment modalities. If I think I got, let's say it's you, Amy, I got you to a certain point. I'm like, I need to get her over this next hill. How do I do that? Maybe I add in the frequency specific microcurrent is a treatment that I do, right? Or maybe I add in something else, right? And let's see if that gets us over, right? Or, and then sometimes and then it's, of course, the most wise person will say, okay, I've gotten you to this point. Let's see if you go to another practitioner, let's see if they can get you past this point, right? Because that's happened for me. Like a chiropractor sent me a patient who had psoriatic arthritis, and so his big goal was he wanted to be able to play his guitar. And so she got him to a certain point that he was mostly pain free, and she said, "Hey, I'm going to refer you to acupuncture. Let's see if that can get you over the hump, right? And see if we can get you playing the guitar a little bit better." Same thing, right? So I saw him, and then he was doing well, so I moved him to like once a month for maintenance. But then he was like, no, I want to come every week, right? Again, self-care, right? Just that
Mhm.
feel good, that type of thing. So that's why I always say it's important. Like, go do the massages, go to the nail salon, go get your hair done, right? And that's for you too, men, like, right?
Mhm.
Not just women, right? Go do that because that's all self-care.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you mentioned, the example of your patient who had anxiety and then was and fear of needles and things like that. For me, it's things like getting older, and wanting to lose weight, but can't lose the past 10,
Mhm.
20 pounds that I've been trying to lose weight. And then also burnout. That's a huge thing for entrepreneurs. Do you have any suggestions on, I mean, obviously coming into acupuncture will help, but what about some of the things we could do outside of that, outside of acupuncture?
I say do more of the activities that bring you joy, right? If that's listening to music or blasting like heavy metal music for a while, go blast heavy metal music for a while. If that means go, hiking, right? Or go walking, along the beach, walking in the forest, go do that, right? Make time for that, but you have to schedule it. Schedule it as it's an appointment. Schedule it as it's an interview, as it's a client, right? You are your client, so you need to go schedule that in your schedule, and there's no negotiating on that. You don't move it, right? Because a lot of times what we do, oh, I blocked off my schedule so I can go, go get my hair done or go get a massage or whatever. But then a client calls and says, hey, can I come see you at this very time that you're getting your massage, right?
Yeah,
And most of us will be like, oh yeah, sure. And then we move our massage appointment, right? Or we move the self-care appointment. And I say, don't do that, right? That's a non-negotiable. You have to schedule it in because you are a client of yourself, right? And so you need to schedule that in, right? And you keep it there, right? Don't move it, right? Of course, unless of emergencies, but for the most part, that's your non-negotiable time to yourself, right? Because then you can, and even if, I know it sounds silly, right? But like schedule that hour where you just, if you're like dancing, and you're just dancing to random music, go do that, right? But for that hour or whatever you think you need, half hour, right? Just go do that because
that's so
then
true. Because
you're going to
I'm a
feel more, like we said, your vibration will be different, right? You'll be higher because you've spent time in doing something that brings you joy so that when you do meet the client, when you do meet the patient and you're ready for them, you're in a different mindset, right? And you're good, you're happy. And then you can give the best service to your client or your patient. And that's going to be great because then they'll see the difference. They'll notice the difference too.
course. Yeah. Like I live by my calendar. If it's not on my calendar, I will either forget it or I'm gonna say, no, it's not on my calendar, so I'm not gonna, I'm not
Hmm.
accountable.
Right.
Right, carve out that time to dance or whatever it is that you need to do to just, get grounded again. And for me, being an entrepreneur, working for myself, I don't mind if I'm working 12 hours a day, but I had to change that mindset where I'm like, okay, I'm not only the CEO, but I'm also an employee. And as an employee,
Hmm.
darn it, I demand to have my weekends off. I
Right.
demand, 5, 6 hours of sleep at a minimum. And so that's one
Hmm.
of the things that I had to really put boundaries and parameters around. It's like, okay, I will work for the weekdays, with my clients or whatever, but on the weekends, I'm working on my projects. I'm not dealing with publishing and author stuff unless it's a real emergency and I get to determine whether their emergency is
Hmm.
also my emergency, right? Is there a
Right.
deadline that we're
Hmm.
focusing on? And that's the hard
Right.
part because everybody's emergency is suddenly our emergency, and
Hmm.
that's not a good thing. But um, have there been challenges for you, not only just with the business, but being, an Asian American woman in this field? Do people have misconceptions about acupuncture and that natural health, or do they have misconceptions about you, when they come in and meet you for the first time as their doctor?
I would say yes. Yes, there have been some challenges. So in it's interesting because Asian actually works in my favor for the acupuncture, right? Because people know acupuncture originated in China, right? So it's just an Asian country, right? And right, and so when they see me having that, oh, okay, it doesn't, they're like, okay, that's fine, right?
Mhm.
Um, but it's interesting for the naturopathic stuff. Like, I mean, this is like in my undergraduate, right? I was the only Tran there, right? I was
Mhm.
like, okay, well, not a whole lot of Vietnamese people, but that's okay, right? Naturopathic school is the same thing, right? But I also went to naturopathic school on the East Coast in Connecticut, right? There, most of the, I think more of the Asian population was more in like Hartford area, right? And I was in Bridgeport, so there's that. Uh, right? I remember there was like the one pho restaurant that I would always go to down the street, right, for Vietnamese food, right, and things. So there have been challenges, and the challenge has not necessarily been. It has been with identity as being an Asian woman, but at the same time, not being the stereotypical Asian woman. Right.
Mhm.
So the stereotypical, the image, right, is the small, petite woman who is passive, right? And I'm not small. Yes, I'm short. I'm only 5'2", but but right? But I'm not like the skinny Asian woman that you picture, right? Like that's what most people picture. So when they see me, they're like, oh, right. And so some of it, it's more about the appearance, right? And not necessarily about what I know and things, right? And so the challenge is like, I remember, one patient was like, do you actually follow what you tell us to do? Right. And I said, well, yes, was why would I not? Right. And the thing is just because they're not used to, because, they're like, oh, well, if you're also the stereotypical naturopathic doctor is like, they're the skinny hippies running around like Santa Cruz area, right? Where everything's all natural. They eat like 100%, like everything's organic, everything, that type of thing. Right. And I'm not like that. And so I'm like, well, yes. Right. Why would I be in this field if I didn't, right? Do that. So there's been a lot of kind of like that. And it's kind of interesting because then once they get to know me, they're like, oh, that's so great. And then it's interesting because I find myself to be a fun loving person. Right. Right. And I think I have a great sense of humor. So it's interesting because people are like, wow, when we first met you, we thought you were so serious and things like that. But you're actually a fun person to be around. And I'm like, oh, okay. I don't know. Right. So there have been that challenges. And then, of course, the challenges of the family, like, why didn't you go to traditional medical school? Why did you go to naturopathic school? Is it because you didn't get into naturopathic or like traditional school or whatever? And I'm like, okay, seriously now?
Mhm.
So there's that, right?
Wow.
So
Yeah.
again, the negative naysayers, like the right, it's just like, well, why didn't you do this, right? And like, well, because this was the best way for me to do whatever it is that I'm doing. So
Yeah.
it's been kind of interesting.
Yeah. It's funny how we have to defend ourselves sometimes. And it's just like, well, why do you take the path that you do? I mean, that's how we're made up.
Right.
Um,
Exactly.
yeah. So you've done a lot and you've achieved a lot. I want to know what's next. Like, what do you want to achieve? What collaborations or projects you're working on? Are you doing a second edition of your book or another book?
So I'm actually working on another book, but it's a naturopathic book. So it's going to be similar kind of formatting to the Acupuncture Awakenings book, where it has Acupuncture Awakenings was kind of a primer on Chinese medicine and the benefits of acupuncture for certain conditions. It's going to, the naturopathic book is going to be the same thing, where it's kind of like the philosophy of naturopathic medicine, the, like, you know, what do we believe in? How do we use it? And what are the core kind of like treatment strategies that naturopathic doctors adhere to. And then what conditions does that help with, right? And I'm actually working, I do serve on certain boards of like professional organizations and things like that. But one of the biggest thing is that I'm actually on the medical advisory board for NAFA. It's the National Association for the Advancement of Fat Acceptance, right? And so I'm a volunteer on the medical advisory committee because we're working on brochures and other things, guides for like other practitioners, like physical therapists, nutritionists, on how to be more fat friendly and, you know, fat inclusive, right? Because a lot of larger people don't actually, or they consider themselves fat, or like there's this whole spectrum, right? Right. They don't seek medical care because they're afraid of the fat shaming that's going to happen in the medical office, right? And some medical offices aren't equipped, right? Because like the table only holds so many pounds, right? And so it's harder for them, right, to do certain things. So we're working on revamping the guidelines, right, so that it can be more inclusive, right, and so that everyone gets access to the care that they need. So that's the big collaboration, and I'm willing to collaborate, talk to anyone, do anything, right, with you, Amy, with anyone, right? It's just more about if I feel good about the project, if it serves the greater good, if it serves the community that I'm in, I'm down for it. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's funny because it's not funny, but when I talk to people, we work on certain projects or we collaborate on certain things, I always am asking, well, what about our LGBTQ community? What about our people who are like me, who are teeny tiny short, like we have
Mm-hmm.
challenges too, or, who are overweight or who, whatever, have other issues, or differences, I should say, not issues, but differences. We need to be more inclusive, and where we most of the time we walk with blinders on. So I love that, that is your space and that you're always aware of it. So thank you for that. I want to switch to
Thank
something
you.
fun. Let's do some rapid fire stuff.
Uh,
I don't know about if it's
sure.
fun for you, but it's fun
Mhm.
for me to ask. So just, I'll throw out some questions. You tell me first thing that comes to your mind. Okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good.
All right. How about what's your daily habit to keep grounded?
Breathing when I'm in line, or deep breathing when I'm in line at the post office, because you know that post office line is very long, and you start to get annoyed. No, literally, I was
Right.
at the post office this morning, and the guy who was at the counter, right? So he's being helped. He was dropping off packages for his wife who has an online business, right? And I just overheard the conversation. Someone asked him, right, why does he have so many packages, right? And so she resells things. And so his job is to bring them. But he literally had one big tote or like two bags. And the poor lady, the labels were already on, but she has to scan them all, right? So
Mm.
she's pulling them out one by one. Meanwhile, there's like three other people in front of me, and there's like a line coming behind me, and I can feel everyone's energy going, oh, how long is this going to take, right? And then he says, oh, I have two more totes in the car, two more big buckets in the car that I have to bring in. All right. So he's, I'm going to go get them. So then he goes out, comes back with one, right? Because, one person, right? And this poor lady, right? In the meantime, like, I think one of the other postal workers is on a break. So there's like less people. So I just do my breathing, right? And it's a good way, by the way. Deep breathing, meditation, breathing. You can do them anywhere. You don't have to have a quiet space. You just kind of just take your deep breath. Like, some people do the four, right? Inhale for four
Yeah.
seconds, right? And then exhale for 4 seconds. So that's what I do. I do that all the time. I do it like when I'm in my car at a red light, right? What
Mhm.
else am I going to be doing at the red light anyway?
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Right?
breathing
Just
definitely
doing
would
that
keep you
just
grounded.
keeps you, right? And it helps reset the nervous system because you're taking time out to
Oh,
concentrate on the breathing, right? And
super.
so that helps.
So if you were in healthcare, what would you be doing?
Oh, I'd probably be a teacher. Almost all of my closest friends are teachers or in education at some point. Right. So yeah.
Love it. Okay. Let's talk about your organs.
Oh, what about my lovely organs? All of our
How
lovely
many organs do
organs.
we have? What are they worth on the black market? What are they worth?
Well, there are a lot of organs, right? But if anyone is trying to sell their organs on the black market, if you were to sell all your organs, all of the bodily fluids, right, you're looking at earning $45 million. Right, that's how much you're worth, right? So when someone says you're worthless, you're not. You're worth 45 million. But I actually think you're priceless, right? So don't sell any organs on the black market. Don't do that. But remember, that's how much you're worth. So you can say you're worth $1 million, and that's when you get to do all of your self-care activities because, or buy that expensive jacket you've been looking at, that expensive shoes, right? Whatever. You're worth it. You're worth $1 million. Might as well.
That's amazing. I love it. Okay, so we're going to wrap up here. Do you have any promos or specials that you want to offer our listeners? And then also, where can we follow you?
Oh, absolutely. So, if you go on my website and sign up for my newsletter, right, you get to download a free medical card, like it's a digital folded card. So you put in all your medical information, right, and you have it with you. So in case there's an emergency, people know what your allergies are. That's great. Plus, if you follow me on Instagram, it's just at SV Natural Health, or Facebook, same thing, same handle, right? You'll get all my health tips and all the fun stuff there. Um, if you buy my book from Amy's website on her
It's
store,
autographed.
right? It's autographed, right? But if you do that, I will do something special for you, but Amy will have to tell you, and I won't tell you what that is.
Okay. Does Amy know what that special thing is?
She will after.
That's awesome. Was there anything that we didn't cover, Miss Julie, that you want to talk about?
No, I think we've covered a lot.
Okay, great. Well, that's a wrap, everybody, with this episode with Dr. Julie Tran. And I hope you're walking away feeling a little bit more grounded, more inspired, and maybe even a little more curious about acupuncture and natural health medicine, which can definitely transform your life. I know it transformed my life, and with my mom being in the field, that was amazing. But so, to learn more about Dr. Tran's work, you know where to find her with Silicon Valley Natural Health. That's in where? San Jose?
San Jose, yep.
San Jose. Okay. Okay. Don't forget to get your copy of Acupuncture Awakenings. If you go to Quill Hawk Publishing website, we do have it for sale. It's autographed. You can, of course, buy it online retailers as well. And then Asian Women Trailblazers Who Boss Up. I think online you can only get the ebook, but I think you have copies, right, that people can buy directly from.
I
Um,
do, and so do you. So if they want the actual, I love the smell of a book, by the way, so I kind of tend to do more of the book instead of the ebook,
Oh
but
yeah, I
yes.
love it too. I have this thing about smelling book cracks, but that's another podcast. Okay, so folks, if you've enjoyed this podcast, please do consider subscribing, giving us a 5-star review if you loved it. That will help us grow. This is a brand new podcast that I just launched, sponsored by Quill Hawk Publishing. And until next time, everybody, please keep up the good work that you're doing to do some self-care and focus on what matters the most to you. So with that, ciao, bellos and bellas.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for listening.
Bye.